going to on a project every day, working with people was all about like, how can I help change someone's perspective? How can I, guide someone and stretch them into an area that they're uncomfortable with? And you kind of have to close all of these gaps, and your team has to complement each other and help each other through these things and make sure that they drive their own self-fulfillment. And if you get them to be fulfilled of what they're doing, then you can apply your values.
Welcome everyone to another episode of the Build Stuff Be Kind podcast. We have the great opportunity to chat with Waleed Bekheet of Protagona, founder, CEO. Waleed, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, so excited to chat. We met at the Founders and Funders event at South by a few weeks back. And basically you told me, no way will I be on a podcast. and here we are. So excited to have this experience together. This is the first podcast you've done?
I've done a couple before, and
Okay. Just hey, we're getting you out of your comfort zone, really feeling you. I think just your team, I met a few people on your team, and just really like, you meet so many people at events and conversations, and it's always a blur, but there definitely stands out to me the team and the dynamic and the way that the team spoke about you even before we got introduced, and what you guys are building at Protagona. And so excited to talk about that and how you built this team and the things that you guys are doing and all the things that have kind of led you to where you are today and in your business and your journey through the lens of your core values, your mindset, and kind of what makes you tick. So let's start with Protagona. What is the business? How did you get it to where it is today?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we'll start with a little bit of background, as far as my experience and stuff like that, what kind of led up to Protagona. But yeah, I come from an engineering background. I started career probably back in 99 or so, doing software development, and kind of went through the normal career progressions, right? Senior engineers, architect, etc. And I was pretty all in on the technology, right? I think I've been in consulting, and that kind of gave me the edge to, see different perspectives. And one of the aha moments that I've had was I was solving a lot more of the people problem than I was the technical problem. And so it was also kind of built up the passion for me to make a difference, not just with our clients, not with the technology, but the people I was working with. And so, throughout different consulting companies, I would pick different learning, different cues. Started the first practice probably back in 2014 or so. And I kind of jumped in as, DevOps was obviously like a super hot buzzword, right? And so really got determined to kind of build in that practice. And, I was left with, I'm a good consultant, and also felt like I'm a decent people leader at the time. And so I was like, well, maybe that's enough. Let's just go start a practice within the company. And very soon realized that I need a lot more, right? I need to be able to sell, sustain, market, understand industry verticals and all of these things. And so throughout my journey in a consulting company, through consulting companies, I realized there's kind of two, opposite spectrums of consulting companies. You're going to have one that's super strategic, right? And they're kind of, thinking about, how can I help you in the next 5 years, right? And, maybe it feels like it's too strategic, not resolving the things that they need today. And then the other side of the spectrum, which is it's too tactical, and it feels like it wasn't pointing to a value. So like, think about like big consulting company talking about 5 5 year plus strategy, and then someone that's saying, hey, this is staff aug, I'm going to do the things that you want me to do, and I'm completely disconnected from the actual value, right? And so really my kind of passion for building Protagona was I need to stay right in the middle. Maybe I don't need to talk about where you're at 5 years from now, right? I need to understand, where are you being reactive into running your business? And I need to buy you time to become more proactive and more transformative within. Because, one side of the spectrum is going to go, here's where you should be and here's where you could be, totally. The dreams, but like, there's not like a clear map to get there, because that map isn't a technology map. That map is a map that, you have to have your right purpose in place, your right values in place, and your guiding principles to kind of take you there, right? And the other side of the spectrum is very tactical, right? So it's not there.
Yeah.
So at Protagona, we're all about, again, talk about today problems, but understanding that the conversation is going to lead to what should you do tomorrow, right? We're an Amazon partner. So we do Amazon only, and we're focused on primarily data. I think data is kind of ahead of every discussion right now, not necessarily because of Gen AI and all of the things that you're seeing right now. To me, I think data puts you in the right seat of being somewhat strategic, and it should drive everything else. If you come in directly into the technology part of things, you kind of get pigeonholed into certain problems, right? But data so we love having data conversations, talking about data strategy, but again, we want to start on things tomorrow and not talk about what your data strategy will look like 5 years from now.
That's super cool. I love that balance, because today we're going to be talking a lot about core values and vision and kind of the driving force, but I think you nailed it. It's the balance of those tools of looking forward, but how does that impact the day to day? How does that impact like the decisions I'm making and the strategy that I'm executing on a day to day, not just something that's like off in the distance or up on a wall somewhere.
It's
like, how do you, I think that's such a good balance. When you were kind of recognizing that ability in yourself to build team and structure teams, and that was maybe more of a strength, that imagine you'd studied engineering and development and all, like probably invested a lot of time and energy into that. What was it like recognizing that skill set kind of translated into this people skill set? Did it feel like, man, I wish maybe I invested too much time, or do you feel like it was something that built on all that experience and time and energy in becoming a talented engineer and developer over those years?
Yeah, I would say there was an excitement part of it, of kind of recognizing the moment, but there was also a very frustrating side of it, because, I definitely recognize that, it's something I need to kind of build. But also coming from an engineering background, right? You're always kind of focusing on the thing and the efficiency of the thing and the beauty of the thing that you're building, and not necessarily everything around. So the frustrating part, and you'll probably hear this a lot, right? You can be a really good engineer, and if your next step is a manager, that doesn't make you, a really good manager to kind of start with, right? And so recognizing there's a gap there. I started thinking the frustrating part is trying to really change yourself within to care about different things. Yeah. And there's an aspect of it that, it's self-training, and like that's the best way to kind of describe it. Going to on a project every day, working with people was all about like, how can I help change someone's perspective? How can I, guide someone and stretch them into an area that they're uncomfortable with? And over time, it kind of becomes, your energy becomes more directed to that than it is that it is the thing that you're building. Definitely, I'm very result oriented. Everybody will on my team probably in frustration will tell you I'm very result oriented, but I also do care about the journey. I care about the values. I care about how everybody feels about delivering that, that purpose.
Yeah, I love that. I had the opportunity to meet a few of your team members. When you go about kind of developing that team or bringing people in with that mentality of we want results, but we also want culture and we want, dynamic people. Do you have a defined strategy in your recruiting approach, or is it something you kind of feel out with each person? What does that look like?
Yeah, definitely my strategy. That seems to be working so far. I don't know what it looks like at scale, right? I hire people that they kind of know half of what they're doing into their next role because they're going to be excited about building themselves up. They're also not going to be entitled or what they already know. And so position them that way, it puts them into a vulnerable position, and vulnerability is key, right? Into actually improving, yourself and building that self-awareness and everything else. The key, however, is to provide the fault tolerance in that strategy to make sure that they're not making a mistake and then being pointed at for that mistake, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to it's not just an individual by individual strategy. You have to create that environment for that to happen, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's really hard to kind of do that because most small companies want to grow, and the key of this strategy is to actually slow your pace intentionally, which could be frustrating. Slow your pace, do it right versus doing it fast. And that's kind of the general strategy for me, handpicking the team. And I would say the other part of that, where I take kind of more of a general wide approach, is understanding that I should not be hiring the same personality over and over again, right? And so I look at the team as a composition of skill sets, personalities, and things like that unite us and helps us serve the purpose. For example, I don't know if you've ever heard of the pioneer, settler, town planner kind of personality. No. Okay, so pioneer, settlers, town planners. I don't remember who came up with it. It was definitely someone a lot smarter than I am. But it talks about people kind of, if you're going to encourage them or if you're going to motivate them, they kind of fall into these kind of three categories. And pioneers, imagine if, two people in the garage, I don't know, they're maybe working on putting a drone together, right? That personality is very fault tolerant. They're not afraid of failure. They take all the risks that they can take. They're probably going to come together and duct tape this thing and try. And failing actually gives them the energy to wake up the next day and try some more. But then, there's that day that this little drone, takes off and it goes up 18 foot in the air, and all of a sudden they're not interested. They're like, mission accomplished. They go
hand this off,
or we're going to go order pizza, high five, and kind of move on to the next project. Settlers kind of pick up that, where they left off, and they go, oh my God, this is genius. This is a great idea. I'm going to take that drone and redesign it a little bit differently. I wanted to go 500 feet up in the air, so they're going to work on that from that perspective, and they're going to come with a strategy to, I don't know, sell it for Christmas. Totally right. Turn it into a toy. They have all these ideas, and then a town planner is going to go, this is not good enough. I need to be able to deliver packages to people's homes. I'm going to take, so that they're thinking a lot further and bigger. And when you really think about that, no one can deliver that end-to-end solution in one personality.
Totally.
Right. And so for me, my recognition was I am a pioneer and then a little bit of a town planner. But really, the stuff in the middle is kind of a gap for me, right? Like I'm someone who's going to start something, figure out, get it stabilized, right? But I'm not really going to be part of the stabilization. Do I know how to do it? Yes. It's not a self-fulfillment. It doesn't give me the self-fulfillment.
100%.
Two things. And so if you're going to hire someone else to do that, you need to hire someone in the place where you need someone that's really excited about taking an idea and making it, scaling it or making it bigger or whatever. I come back into that and I go, now that we got here, I didn't know how to do that myself. We need to kind of, I can pick up from there. I also will have some more, town planning gaps. So now you started to kind of hire people within. If you hire people that are all pioneers, you'll never get to the next level. And if you hire people that are only town planners, very strategic, what happens is nothing ever gets started. We're going to talk about a lot of really cool stuff, but nothing ever gets started. So that like kind of bringing that back to the whole strategic and tactical, you kind of have to close all of these gaps, and your team has to complement each other and help each other through these things and make sure that they drive their own self-fulfillment. And if you get them to be fulfilled of what they're doing, then you can apply your values.
Totally.
Right? Because otherwise, everybody's going to have their own values. It's not going to align. You're not really giving people a sense of fulfillment in what they're doing. But also like a combination with that and then hiring someone that only knows half and kind of working on the other half, it gives the sense of, it gives you room to stretch people into uncomfortable places a little bit, right? And then it kind of exposes the potentials.
Yeah, I mean,
long answer, but
no, it's so good. I want to try to unpack a few things. The concept of hiring someone a previous role, one foot in the next role, or at least like that where their skill set lies, I think that is something I've never really heard articulated that way, and makes just so much sense to me that they're already like pushing themselves to growth. Maybe they're not fully there yet, but you can see that there's that growth in them, and then provide a path for their growth within your company. Man, that's a super cool concept.
Yeah. And then part of it, I'm doing that for myself, right? Again, from a technical side of things, then, building companies, being part of buying companies and selling companies and that kind of stuff. And, for me, my stretch was, I don't want to be in front of the camera. I don't want to be the guy on stage. It's never been my personality. And so, building Protagona, part of it was part of like, man, like you got to stretch yourself. So jumped in with
here you are,
both feet. And do I like it? I like what I'm doing and everything else, but like that is still a limitation to me. And this is why I, talk to people like yourself that can maybe, help me get to my next level.
It's cool. I love that. I think there's that. I love that pioneer, settler, and town planner concept for so many reasons. I sometimes talk about almost in a different way, but a similar application of like, you have superheroes that can like create fire, and then superheroes that can manipulate fire. And I think that's kind of similar to maybe that pioneer settler, where it's just like you have people who can like just create something out of nothing, and figure it out. And then you have people that can like take that seed of a flame and make it into, manipulate it and make it into this huge thing. And I think that's such a cool, I come from pioneer heritage, and so that mentality is ingrained in my DNA, and so really strikes a chord for me. But I think also just understanding, like you said, another thing I think is really important to touch on is motivation versus core values. And I think that's a really interesting distinction, because each employee is motivated differently, but you can apply the core values if you understand their motivation. So I'd love to have your perspective on that, of like how you really get clarity. Maybe you use the Pioneer Settler town planner to help in that. But how do you get clarity as CEO on the motivations, but then utilize the core values of the company to really enhance those motivations?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that the key is to have an individualization strategy, not a generalized strategy. And so when I say, so like our values are people first, humility, freedom, win together, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's going to mean different things to different people, and you cannot change that, right?
Yep.
And so I've been part of this in the past, where you go define these strategies and you go, here are our values. And, maybe it's on the wall somewhere and all of that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, they're words. And if you really want to make it consistent, then you're going to script it. And once you script it, something is wrong, right? Because now you're forcing people into reading by your own definition. Because given the freedom, which is one of our core values, to figure out what does that mean to you, right? And so when I say something like freedom will mean something completely different to someone else. To me, freedom is about recognizing that freedom is not free, and so that the word freedom to me maps to the word discipline and perseverance. Because that's really what gives you the freedom. For someone else, it might be that I get flexible time off and I do this thing and I spend time with my family. And I think the key here is like, that's okay, right? Like people are going to have a different perspective on things, but you want them to own it. It has to be theirs. They have to be part of defining what it means other than you telling them what it is. And so I get asked this question: if you ask any of your people right now, do they know every word and like what does it mean? And my answer is no, and I'm okay with that, right? And I feel like you hire the right people, and you do the right thing in managing the team, and you're leading by example. I think you should see the words. You should feel them, rather than quiz them. What our values are.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in intent and intention, and committing to a clear intention.
That's right.
Both in recognizing people's intent and trying their best, but also in just the intent of, hey, here's these core values. Here's what we intend for them to accomplish. But how we interact with intent is very different than how we interact with a regiment or a strict, guideline, for sure.
And so if you want to bring that back to kind of the Pioneer Settler Town Planner, right? People have a different definition of what does it mean to win together. And so pioneers, for example, they're going to be more on the, I want to win. I want to see my individual contribution and what that leads to, right? So I want to take a credit. I want to be the inventor. I want to. So it comes with a different personality. Versus, again, so that's the self-fulfillment and motivation there. As a settler, you're probably going to look at it very differently. Is the thing working? Right? Is the process, you're thinking value stream.
Do people like it?
Do people like it? And there's a very different, right? And town planner is going to look at that completely different, like partnerships and this and this. And
that. How do we repeat this? How do we scale it?
That's right. You can't motivate your sales team the same way you're motivating your development team, different, your marketing team, different, right? And so why do we go back to here's the thing that everybody has to go by. Let them define their own. And that is the definition of freedom.
There's that famous quote by Viktor Frankl, that freedom without responsibility is useless. I can't remember the tail end, but and I think that's such an important thing is the responsibility that comes with that flexibility, that freedom. You want employees, you want a team, you want people who appreciate and respect the freedom and recognize the responsibility that comes with that empowerment.
Yep.
For sure.
That's it.
Yeah, I love that. As you navigate, growing forward, of leaning into new challenges for yourself, growing what are things that you're thinking about in terms of your legacy, or what impact you want to have on your team or the world, or like, have you thought on that level of what do I really want to be known for and accomplish, years down the road?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have my own kind of like 10 years from now. And I think my team
Nice.
going like, is this what we're building? Like what happening? But man, I really want to, call it the 5-year plan, right? The 5-year plan to me is, just getting in a place where Protagona feels like a leadership university almost. This is the place you get muscle, and you want to go to the gym as a leader, right? And kind of be part of figuring out yourself and like how to take that energy and go out to do something big. But really, like in my mind, like the end game here is like I'm building a community, not a company. And so, like, if anyone would tell you, probably like, I'm not competitive at all. And so sometimes I'll look at like, are we solving the right problems out there? Like, take an industry, oil and gas, take an industry, airlines, whatever that is. Yeah. I'd love to figure out, like, remove the competition aside. There's a lot of, brilliant people out there. How do we bring these people together to go solve one or two things, right? 10 years from now, I would love, for people to know us or know our community as go solve world level problems, right? Like, what we're doing right now is great at an engineering level and everything else. But how do you take that to the next level? Me personally, like my goal is at some point, build a fund for, people that are helping me build Protagona now, they have their own ideas and they want to do their own things, right? And so, being able to step back and, maybe mentor or guide or just witness how other people are doing things, and that's super fulfilling to me. I tell my team this, like, we all going to have the same end one day. And so, it doesn't really matter how much money you make and how much, like don't focus on the wrong thing, because, I, like, as a person, I live below my means all the time. I live in the same house that I lived at, because it's not what motivates me, right? What motivates me is like how much impact I'm making on my children, how much impact I'm making on the community, how much impact, and that's kind of, I want honestly,
I love that.
I know it sounds cheesy. It's like, helping people, growing people, etc. But like, that's what makes me wake up at night. I'm totally okay with it being cheesy. So,
no, it's not cheesy. I think that the world needs more of that, of looking back, of, leaders like yourself recognizing that your job is not to be at the front of the pack. Your job is to be at the back of the pack, helping everyone. You're serving your team. That's who you are employed by, not the other way around. And I can feel that from you, and that mentality of like, it is that responsibility, that duty, that obligation and opportunity. And so I think that's very much a meaningful endeavor to set out on. Not many, CEOs think about company as community. What motivates that in you?
I think, and I've, the the best way I can describe it, and this is something I actually went to a reunion of something an organization I'm part of. There's this talk about building 1,000-year company. If you were to go build 1,000-year-old company, how would you go build that? And you really realize that, yes, people are part of it. What you're building is part of it. But reality is, it grounds you to what is really important. What's really important is building leaders and building a purpose for those leaders, and then showing them how to pass on what they build to others. And I think that's a lot of time actually what we miss as a generation, what we're missing as a society, what we're missing, right? How do we pass this knowledge on? And you could see the difference in generations. Sometimes we lose a lot of core values. Sometimes we gain others and we get different perspectives. But if you were to build 1,000-year-old company, you cannot just base it on the people. It's an obvious thing. What will hold that company together 1,000 years from now is legacy. And it ends up being that community, that core value, and being able to pass what you build onto other people. And the only way you could do that is kind of build it in to the people you hire, the people, right? But yeah, legacy is all about what are you leaving behind, but also what are you leaving behind in place to carry on, this without you being there. Totally. That's the community part of it. And I do feel like the competition is very distracting at times.
Yes.
Everybody's trying to solve the same thing.
Hard to turn it off.
You have hundreds and hundreds of consulting companies out there trying to solve the same thing. Yeah. What if we got together in one room and been able to solve this? Totally. Right? So money is distracting in that factor. Competition is distracting. I think we could be a lot smarter, right? Yeah. And much more impactful if we have that community where vulnerability is there, and that the purpose is to solve the thing and have everybody enjoy the process of doing it. Otherwise, everybody's trying to do the same thing. They're going to do it. They're going to duplicate the effort across the board. And at the end, you're going to get less than ideal results. How do you do that? Yeah. Without, we're all run businesses as well. So it's not like, not competitive is not part of it.
Got to pay the bills.
But I feel like there is something there. I don't know what it is, but that's in my mind. Like once, the company's where I need it to be, that's my next big thing is to figure it out.
I love that. Yes. Simon Sinek has a great book called The Infinite Game. And it's all about that mentality of we're not competing. We are like a great, one of the examples I think he gives is like great athletes want to compete against great athletes. Like you want to be just constantly competing and grow in that sense. It's more of a collaboration of competition. It's more of like, let's push ourselves. Let's become the best versions of ourselves. Let's create an infinite game that pushes us all forward and pushes the level of play and the level of execution to a higher level. And in that way, we all win. And there's room for everyone to win in an infinite game.
Exactly. And I think you nailed it there. It's about identifying and having the self-awareness to compete with ourselves a little bit and challenge ourselves. It is compete with others all the time. It's also very stressful, right? It's very stressful. And so the moment you have kind of like that inner peace around, a certain thing, it releases, it releases your energy in a much more positive place.
Yeah. 100%.
And again, it's kind of coming back to the purpose part. I don't really share this with many people, but, about four, I took some time off after, a company and enrolled, in a program here in Dallas. It was, for CEOs, founders, leadership and management. it was all about like, figuring out your own higher purpose, your own this. And one of the things that I've learned was to kind of ask yourself questions, but also not validate yourself, but like challenge yourself to, are you basically BSing the answers or not? One of the hardest things I had to go through mentally, and it was 3 months of just, it was tough. It was, for me, what was really important to me, and like everybody would say, I was like, my family goes first, blah 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 blah, right? People first, family first. That's, but I also, started asking myself questions like, well, if your family's really first, and you're doing all of this to, for the purpose of serving your family, that's great. So if someone were to give you all the money, all of the security, guarantees that your family's going to be in a good place, and again, no financial anything, and like everything's taken care of for you, would you be happy? And my answer to myself was, I don't want to talk about that right now. But the reality is, it took me some time, and I realized, like, hell no, I would be miserable. Like, I would absolutely be miserable. And it's not because I don't love my family. And so this was a month's conversation with myself. I felt terrible because now I was unable to face myself, say like, my family isn't number one. And that was, like, I'm saying it now and then it sounds bad, right? But reality is, I am motivated by work. I'm motivated more about my professional life, and I'm always setting the bar higher when I get there. Somehow it is exhausting, but it's fulfilling.
Yeah.
And in doing so, I obviously want to make sure my family is taken care of. So, however, if you swap that around, and if I stayed with the kind of family is always number one thought, I maybe have a miserable job, right? That I don't want to be.
Totally.
And so, like, why would I do that? Right.
Then that creates resentment and
creates resentment. It creates, unhappiness. And then you're not going to show up the way you want to show up for your family.
Exactly.
And so it's kind of like, the oxygen mask goes on you first before you try to help others. Yeah. And that's what I realized. And I went to my wife and I said, hey, listen, I feel really bad about this. And, it took me a while. And she's like, dude, you didn't have to tell me, like, we know.
For sure. Yeah.
But that was such a weight off of my shoulder, my heart, my everything else. Dude. And it gave me the clarity to go start what I started. Right. I was like, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to make sure that my family is taken care of while I'm doing that. But what was keeping me interested in what I do, it really wasn't my family. And you know what? I'm okay with that now.
Yeah, dude, thank you for sharing that, because I think it is, there is that, like, obviously, drive as a husband, as a father, as a parent, all these things you're juggling, and to get that clarity of like purpose and not lying to yourself, not lying to anyone else, especially your family, and having that clarity. I think that is such an empowering thing when we can really recognize, like, who are we, what are we motivated by? And then the transparency of that really enables you to show up everywhere as that empowered self, and probably enabled you to show up as a better husband, a better father, better partner, because now when you were showing up, it wasn't through the lens of I have to do this, or this should be my priority too. I know my priorities, and this is a piece and a component of that, and now I can show up truly in the way that I can make the most impact and be most present. And I think that's hard. Yep. But a really empowering thing. And so I appreciate you sharing that. Oh. I know I got chills when you were sharing. Just like, just even evaluating my own, drive. A lot of times we tell ourselves, "Oh, I'm doing this for I'm doing this for my family. I'm working all these hours for my family," and they're like, "Well, why don't you stay home? Because that's all we really want." It's like, "Oh, yeah, okay. So what is it? And how do you navigate that?" And I think that's a powerful exercise to go through and really understand who you are and create that understanding and commitment. Just like we talked about earlier, intent. Now it's clear, to everyone where the intent is and how you can fully embody that in each aspect of your life, which is super cool. We have one question that we ask every guest. It's a topic we can explore in depth. Not to kind of cut us off in any way, but it's I think what all this kind of leads up to, which is for you, Waleed, what role has kindness played in building your success?
What role has kindness played in my success? I think, I don't know if I describe it as kindness. I do care about people a lot. And so I think individualization is kind of one of my strength is I can level with people at, the individual level and not just kind of a general, I say the role honestly, like maybe even starting a company or moving companies and things like that. I've had client reached out that said your employees were much happier, working with you and that kind of stuff. So like there is, there is that part of it. But I think it also exposes vulnerability in other people because you have it yourself. And so they're more open about what they're motivated by and they're not motivated by, right? And I think understanding that gives you the sense of the clues to align people where they're going to be most successful and to also align them to where they can be stretched. But yeah, I guess it's a weird one because I don't see it as kindness, I guess. So that's why I'm kind of like looking at it. I was like, is it really kindness? Is it, it just, but like the saying, like, what goes around comes around, man. Like I just kind of operate with the principle, that I'm going to do good and I have no expectations. And, in my experience, it always kind of came back around when you least expect it. Right.
Yeah, no, I think you make a really compelling point that I think kindness is part of the reason that's the theme of the show is it kind of it creates this like compelling and uncomfortable in a lot of ways conversation, because I think oftentimes we relate kindness to weakness, and you talked about being direct with people and individualizing feedback, and like oftentimes that is seen inaccurately as unkind. Oh, you're telling them what they did wrong, or you're giving feedback, or no, that's not, in my opinion, that is the ultimate form of kindness, is giving someone the feedback, the understanding, the opportunity to go through the process you went through of like recognizing in yourself. I'm sure I'd imagine that was a challenge from someone else or that program you were in, which is the ultimate form of kind of like to call you out on it and be like, no, really? Let's break that down. Go sit with that for a minute. It's like, what? Like, but that to me is what kindness is all about. And the empowering side of kindness is that there's so much to it in really aligning to how you can help someone and how you can impact someone.
Exactly. Yeah. And it takes on different forms too. So you've talked about intent and perception. Your intent might be, call it kindness, call it whatever we want to call it. Perception sometimes is, like you said, the opposite, right? And so a direct example to that is, when I want to promote, someone on my team to something else, I want to see them within that role already, not because of, anything other than I don't want to set them up for failure. Right. And so if you have someone that is a lead that is trying to go into a director position, the moment you give them that title and they show up somewhere with that title, guess what happens? They have an expectation that title. They just got promoted to it yesterday. And so immediately set them up for failure. They go from a very high performing individual to
the
right
worst in their
category. Yeah. So kind of with the whole half what you know, half it gives you that tolerance to be able to shape that. And you can call it active kindness, but it's all intent and perception.
Yeah.
That the last thing I want to do is someone working so hard to get promoted, to get into a place where they're not happy with the role. They're not seeing, living up to the role. So you got to let them run just a little bit past that, and then make sure that they're good with it. They're performing within that, and they're truly excited, and they continue their journey versus, take an initial hit to go like, this is not for me anymore.
Yeah, totally. I love that mentality. I think there's this idea, I can't remember, I heard it on a podcast or something, of like, there are a lot of high level C-suite directors, VPs that actually are terrible at their job because of what you just described. Like,
exactly.
Like everyone kind of has that limit or that thing, or whether it's not enough training, or just like, they're just a really great, senior leader, but maybe that role, but that's kind of because things are driven so much by hierarchy of role, responsibility, wage, salary, all that. Like, there is this interesting dynamic of getting to a place where you're just not ideal for that role, but that's kind of the path. But I love this approach of like giving people that bridge so that they can really embrace it and evolve into it, because they already have some of the elements they need to be successful in that manager role.
It's a completely different muscle group, right? And it's because you know how to run a marathon, that doesn't mean you can swim a mile, right? And so that's
love that, dude. So man, this has been such a fun conversation and gone in so many really interesting and compelling directions. That's what I love about this process. I love to be able to get into your mentality. I've learned a ton. I know everyone listening to this episode will be able to take and extract from your experience, your leadership, your style of who you are. You can feel it, you can see it, you can recognize that the words you are saying are from core beliefs and executions, not just words. And that's huge. I think that's such a powerful trait as a leader, especially in today's age. We need more leaders like you. So I appreciate you coming on the show, sharing that experience. I'd love to be able to direct people to you. What's the best way to people to kind of follow on your journey and connect with you?
I'm not overly a social media guy, but you'll find me on LinkedIn, and I can leave my email with you, and I'm always happy to connect and share my thoughts.
Awesome. We'll tag that in the episode description and everything when this episode goes out. All can follow along with your journey, the journey of Protagona. And you building this 1,000-year brand, which is awesome. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this week's episode. We really appreciate your support. Let us know in the comments what you're going to change, apply, extract from this episode, your favorite part. Let us know what that was, and we'll be sure to share it with Waleed as well. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time.